Welcome back to Talk of the Town on 99.7, 1450 WHTC and WHTC.com.
And welcome back to Talk of the Town for this Wednesday, August the 12th. I'm Gary Stevens. We'll have more open line time for you following the 11 o'clock news block. But we are joined, as we are during the spring, summer, and early fall months on a monthly basis, by Eric Westveer. We can still say Lieutenant-Designate for the Ottawa County Sheriff's Department. He is with the Marine Unit. Eric, good morning and welcome back to Talk of the Town.
Well, good morning and thanks for having me back.
Have you gotten the lieutenant's bars yet, or is it still a thing in waiting?
A couple more weeks yet. We got to get through this Marine season yet, and then we'll move on to that.
All right, so we'll just say Lieutenant-Designate. He's still a sergeant, but he is getting the promotion. By the way, you heard it first on WHTC Talk of the Town, thanks to Sheriff Steve Kempker. We'll talk about boating safety. We will talk about water safety as well. And you can join in our Zoom conversation, not on Zoom, but at WHTC's regular listener line at 395-1450. Eric, first of all, a question, or shall we say an observation that a caller made a couple of days ago on Talk of the Town, talking about the flag system at the county beaches and the like. And the caller said maybe the flags need to be a little bit bigger so that people can see it and there'd be no excuse. Well, I didn't see the flag. Could that help?
I think anything, can help when it comes to visibility, getting the information out there. I do know that a couple flags were added this year, my understanding, compared to last year, but size, again, you're going to increase that visibility to try to get away from exactly like you said, I didn't see it, I didn't know type of responses. Not
just a flag at the beach itself, but maybe a little something at the entrance to, well, the county can be able to control this with Tunnel Park or North Beach, but maybe ask the state to maybe put a little thing right at the entrance so people can see it right at the beginning.
Yeah, and it is actually my understanding that they do have a flag at the entrance now as well. So when you come in at the booth, you can see the flags that's displayed as well.
Correct me if I'm wrong, and you can do that easily. It's no problem. Have we had that many issues with the wind currents this summer? It seems as if we've had some, but not in the great volume. It's not like we're having days and days and days of, yellow flags and red flags. It seems as if it's a little bit sparser this year, or is it just my perception of the whole thing?
As far as incidences, we have, as everybody knows from watching the news, we had some uptick this year in incidences out there. But as far as the weather pattern days, I can't really say if we've had more of the types of days that can create the hazards or less. I know that we are a little more in tune to it because we know that a northwest wind is what's primarily going to give us our issues at the Holland State Park. So we're more in tune to it. So I'm seeing it more, but I think it's just because I'm more in tune to it this summer.
Okay, I just didn't know. It just seems like at times that's there, but in the other times it just seems like at other times we've had more of these beach advisory, wind advisory, special marine warning, not warnings, but special marine statements. That's what the Weather Service calls it.
And I think you're going to start to see more of that as we venture into the fall season too, because that's when we start to get more of that severe weather coming in the wind patterns.
Again, if you have a question for Sergeant Eric Westveer, we'll take it at 395-1450, 395-1450. We don't touch upon it a lot with you. We touch upon it more with the elected leaders on high water and its damages. But we might as well bring it up with you as well. High water levels continue to plague the lakeshore, continue to plague not only Lake Mac, but also the Grand River and Lake Michigan. It's something like we have to live with this right now because, when we've had low water, we've had to live with that. Now we got to live with high water.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. And like you said, you've talked a lot with a lot of elected officials, but I've also through the summer been working with them as well to try and do what we can to minimize the amount of damage that it is actually doing to the lake shore, to inland lakes as well as the big lake. And I've been working with residents as well to see what we can do, collectively to minimize not just the property damage, but some of the safety aspects that are associated with it. You get the higher waters, we have seen portions of docks breaking away and floating away. Out on Lake Michigan, some of the stairways that would go down to the beach. And those in turn can be hazardous for boaters, for water skiers, for people that are out enjoying the water in any type of recreational sport.
Yeah, that's a very good point because of the fact that we got pieces of wood floating around, and that's not supposed to happen there as well. Another byproduct of high water is trying to deal with no wake and low wake zones and enforcing those no wake and low wake zones. Has it been, have people been playing nice on that, or has the Marine unit had to call out, write up more citations because people are, shall we say, zipping around when they shouldn't be zipping around?
Yeah, we have, you're going to have certain areas in Lake Mac that have its problems that we focus on. For the most part, in the big picture, since Park Township, Holland Township, and Holland City collectively passed the temporary slow no wake zones, we have brought up our enforcement efforts in the zones, and we have seen very good compliance from boaters over the past few weeks in those zones.
Yeah, good compliance on that. Is that the same up in the Grand Haven area with the Grand River and some of the bayous up in that area too?
Yeah, so up there, they at this point have not enacted any of the temporary slow no wake zones. So those are still the existing ones up on the Grand River and the Spring Lake area. At this point, it's just been Pigeon Lake and Lake Nakatawa that have enacted those.
Okay, I just kind of trying to get a lay of the land, as they say, as we're getting into we're into the dog days of summer, the warm days of summer. Do you gauge? And I would say you, in terms of the department, do you sometimes gauge water temperatures as well, so that you might say, hey, it's going to be kind of warm in the water. We're going to have a lot more people in the waters on these certain days. You might have to adjust your patrols accordingly.
Yeah, we do. And for both directions. If you recall, a couple weeks ago with the east winds, the lake turned over and the water temperatures plummeted dramatically. So we do keep an eye on those to determine, okay, weather patterns are supposed to be good this weekend. If the lake is in the low 70s, we expect a huge amount of people to both at the lake shore and on boats be out at the lake. So then we'll adjust the number of patrols and how many officers are on each boat according to that.
I know this might be more of a medical question, Eric Westveer, but it does, I'll ask it anyway, and maybe you can answer, maybe you can't, I don't know. But when we do have colder water temperatures, people, the easterly winds and stuff like that, and it's kind of warm, but still people want to get cool and cool off it. And yet, do they, what signs could people look for that maybe they need to get out of the water like now because it's getting too cold for them instead of being too warm?
Yeah. So, and you kind of alluded to it there with the risk of hypothermia. Again, I think it was last weekend or maybe the weekend before, the lake turned over, as we refer to it, and water temperatures plummeted to about 50 degrees and colder in some spots. But in circumstances like that, it does not take long for you to go and start into the hypothermic state. So even if you're just starting to feel chilled, at that point, I would recommend starting to get out of the water, because in water, you lose body temperature a lot faster than you do in cold air. So hypothermia can set in very quickly when you're in situations like that.
Yeah, and then you guys are unfortunately on the front lines in this regard when somebody does start struggling in the water, and you guys got to be the first responders, because the ambulance doesn't go out all the way to the lake.
That's right. And fortunately this year we have not had an issue with somebody in the cold water. But again, it just takes a couple days of east winds and the water temperatures can change. If you're not prepared for it, it can take you by surprise.
Is it just simply on Lake Michigan those water temperatures you have to worry about, or maybe the inland waterways too?
It primarily Lake Michigan, because you have all that colder water that's sitting low in the lake yet that doesn't warm up. And when you get the east wind, it pushes the warm water out, and then that cold water rises up, and that's what you're feeling. So in the smaller lakes like Lake Mac, with how shallow it is compared to Lake Michigan, you generally don't have those problems.
395-1450, 395-1450 if you have a question for Sergeant Eric Westveer. From time to time, does the unit have to deal with, in terms of the beach area, some swimmers who feel that they want to try to be like the ultra swimmer, Jim Dreyer,
Yeah.
try to become the marathon swimmer and try to go away from the protected areas? Do you have to sometimes sort of rein some of these would-be Jim Dryers in a little bit?
Fortunately, we haven't had any issues with that at all. As long as I've been with the Marine unit, we've had no issues with that at all. So
I was just thinking about that because this past weekend was supposed to be the Mighty Mac swim that Jim Dreyer organizes every year between St. Ignace and Mackinac City. And of course, Jim, being from Byron Center, and he trained at the Holland Community Aquatic Center, he's got, sometimes people want to do some training in Lake Michigan as well. So, but usually, swimmers usually stay within the buoys of their beaches as well, and that's kind of good to see.
Yeah.
Eric, I want to talk a little bit about boating safety, or shall we say boating enforcement. We had back on the 4th of July weekend the Operation Dry Water to try to keep boaters, make sure there's no drunken boating situations. Obviously, a high awareness effort such as the 4th of July, you tend to be able to crack down on it. But sometimes the retentiveness of such efforts can sort of slip away from boaters. Have you seen boaters maybe, shall we say, being a little bit negligent about not drinking while boating?
I wouldn't say more than a normal on a warm weekend. Again, like you said, we had the Operation Dry Water, so we saturated patrols, specifically targeting that. The OWI, as we refer to it, or operating while intoxicated boating, is always at the foremost of our enforcement list, even when we're not doing the Operation Dry Water, because the safety issues that come in, to play with that when you're operating intoxicated. So we're always out there vigilantly looking for that. So to say, have I seen an increase because people might have forgot about it or put it out of their mind? No, it's been pretty average on each weekend.
Okay, just didn't know whether or not sometimes when you're not reminded of something, you sort of let forget things go along the lines.
Yep.
We talked about, when we've done boating discussions, Eric, about the fact that the enforcement is not just for drunken boating, but also to make sure that the vessels that are on the water are properly equipped. Has that improved a little bit over time, or is it still the same old, come on, people, you got to have the life vests ready. You got to have the extinguishers. We keep telling you. They don't listen.
To be honest with you, we found very good compliance with the safety stuff on the boat. And I think what helps is those vessel inspections that we do for free, to go through your vessel with you, ensure that you have everything on there. But I have noticed, going through some of the statistics for the year, the one thing that people are forgetting that I'm seeing repetitively is a throwable flotation device. If you're over 16 feet, you're required to have that on board, and that's the one thing we're finding that people are forgetting to put on.
Yeah, not only when they're on a regular big vessel, but also the personal watercraft. Those are the ones that really tax the enforcement efforts in that regard.
That's right. Yeah.
All right. The other thing, how much enforcement does the Marine unit do in terms of dealing with, say, fishing and that type of enforcement? Is it more let the DNR handle this, or do you guys have to be in part of this as well?
So as far as if you say the fishermen go out, we're primarily looking for the same thing we would a pleasure boater. We're looking for the marine violations, the slow and awake violations, safety stuff on the boat. When it comes to the actual fishing, as far as having fishing licenses, your limits, that's more handled by the DNR. A certified officer can, from the sheriff's office, do that, but we primarily stick to we deal with the marine laws, they'll deal with the natural resources side of it.
Okay, I just didn't know whether or not, because obviously the DNR has X amount of officers, but it could be augmented by local and state police officers as well. But if let the DNR do what the DNR does best.
Yeah. And again, if a call does come in through our dispatching center, we will, assist the DNR, handle the call for them if need be, work with them to make sure that it's addressed.
Let's get a call before we button up our conversation with Ottawa County Lieutenant-Designate Eric Westveer. Good morning. You're on Talk of the Town. And unfortunately, that caller did not stay on. 395-1450, 395-1450. One final thing as we get towards Labor Day. Is that sort of like the end of the line for many of the boating and water safety issues? And now you can focus after Labor Day on just maybe more boating safety and water safety, or is it just simply, it's another day, let's go move on?
From our perspective, I mean, everyone sees Labor Day as kind of like the unofficial end of summer. School starts back up again. The weather starts cooling off. From the Marine unit's perspective, we usually don't see a slowdown until about mid-September. So we've got about 2 weeks after that where we're still out there just as active as we are through the rest of the summer. Once we see the boating, numbers start to drop, then we'll start to readjust our schedules around that as well.
Okay, I just didn't know whether or not you can start taking a breath.
A couple weeks after that, yeah. Usually the end of September we will.
Yeah, and then we'll see what happens as we go into October and some of those autumn pleasure boat rides as well. Sergeant Eric Westveer of the Ottawa County Sheriff's Department's Marine Unit 1, thank you very much for joining us today on WHTC Talk of the Town. We wish nothing but safety and good health for you and all of the members of the staff. Hopefully we don't have to worry about a lot of issues on area waterways between now and the next time we chat in September. Eric, thank you.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. That's Ottawa County Sheriff Sergeant Eric Westveer.